All right, get ready for a deep dive into a case that's as chilling as it is complex.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those stories that grabs you for the headlines.
A young Spanish chef, Daniel Sancho, accused of murdering and dismembering a Colombian surgeon, Edwin Arrieta, in Thailand.
And the stakes are incredibly high for Sancho.
Absolutely, we're talking life imprisonment, maybe even the death penalty.
In a foreign country, no less.
Right, and what's fascinating is how quickly this went from a missing persons report to an international story.
Right, and it's not just any young man. We're talking about the son of a famous Spanish actor, Rodolfo Sancho.
Yeah, the media attention has been intense.
Oh, for sure.
So as we go through these articles, it feels like we're piecing together a puzzle.
And each piece just raises more questions.
Exactly. Conflicting accounts, missing evidence, a high-profile police officer caught in a corruption scandal. There's a lot to unpack here.
A lot to unpack.
So maybe let's start with the timeline.
Yeah, a good place to start. In any case like this, especially with so many twists and turns, the timeline is crucial. And this one all started on July 31st, 2023, when Daniel Sancho arrived alone on the island of Koh Phangan in Thailand.
Koh Phangan.
Yeah, and he checked into the same hotel room that Edwin Arrieta, the Colombian surgeon, had booked a few days before.
So even from the beginning, it seems like something was planned.
There's definitely a sense of premeditation. And then on August 1st, security cameras catch Sancho buying some, well, let's just say interesting items. Knives, bags, gloves, and cleaning supplies.
It's chilling to think about those details, knowing what we know now.
Yeah, knowing what happened, it paints a pretty disturbing picture.
Right, like he was preparing for something awful.
Exactly. Then on August 2nd, Arrieta arrives on the island. Sancho is there to meet him. They're seen having dinner together.
So it seemed like everything was fine between them.
Yeah, at least on the surface. But after that dinner, after they head back to the hotel, that's the last time anyone sees Arrieta alive.
And then it just turns into a nightmare.
Yeah.
The frantic search, the discovery of Arrieta's remains, and then Sancho's confession. It's almost too much to process.
It's a lot to take in.
And then it takes another turn. Sancho retracts his confession and says he acted in self-defense.
Right, claiming that Arrieta assaulted him.
So suddenly we have two very different stories.
Two completely different narratives.
So on one side, we have Sancho's defense saying it was a heated argument that got out of control.
An accidental death during a struggle.
But then the prosecution says it was premeditated murder.
Pointing to those items Sancho bought and how Arrieta's body was handled.
Right, those purchases definitely raised some red flags.
And to add another layer of complication, the alleged murder weapons, the knife and the saw, have disappeared.
Wow, that's a huge blow to the defense.
Yeah, makes it a lot harder to support the self-defense claim.
It really does. It's like something out of a crime novel. Just when you think you're starting to understand what happened, something else goes missing.
Exactly. And then there's the involvement of Big Joke, the prominent Thai police officer who was initially leading the investigation.
Right, big joke.
He was later arrested for corruption.
Which cast a huge shadow over the whole investigation.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if his alleged corruption impacted how Sancho's case was handled.
It's a question that just hangs over everything. So we've got a crime, conflicting stories, missing evidence, and a potentially compromised investigation.
And all of this is playing out within the Thai legal system.
Which is very different from the Spanish system that Sancho would be used to.
That's a really important point. The Thai legal system is known for being very strict.
The death penalty is still on the table, although they haven't carried out an execution since 2018.
But it's still a possibility.
So yeah, the cultural differences and legal nuances are huge factors here.
Absolutely. And even the idea of a prison transfer back to Spain, which Sancho's lawyers are looking into, is a long shot.
A very complex process.
It really is. Lots of hurdles to overcome.
It's easy to get lost in all the legal details, but let's not forget what's at stake. A young man's life, the search for justice, and a family trying to cope with this horrible situation.
Yeah, it's a heartbreaking situation for everyone involved. And, amidst all these legal complexities and the different versions of events, it's really important to remember the human impact of this case.
Yeah. We talked about Daniel Sancho's situation, but what about the families? They're caught in the middle of all of this.
Exactly. Sancho's parents, Rodolfo Sancho and Silvia Bonchalo, their lives have been turned upside down.
I can't even imagine.
Trying to navigate a foreign legal system.
Oh, yeah.
Dealing with a language barrier, facing constant scrutiny from the media, all while trying to be there for their son. The emotional toll must be unimaginable.
It's hard to even comprehend.
And then there's Edwin Arrieta's family.
Right.
They're thousands of miles away, mourning this devastating loss and demanding justice for their loved one. And they've been very vocal about wanting the harshest possible punishment for Sancho. It just underscores the intense emotions surrounding this case.
Absolutely. It's a tragic loss for them. And it's a good reminder that beyond the headlines and the legal arguments, this is about real people. Real families whose lives have been shattered by this. And the trial itself, which wrapped up in May 2024, didn't really provide much closure.
Well, yeah, it was held behind closed doors. Very little information was released to the public. It just led to more speculation and left a lot of questions unanswered.
Yeah, I could see how that lack of transparency would be frustrating, especially from a Western perspective.
Right. The Thai legal system operates under different rules, different cultural norms. It can be difficult to understand for those who aren't familiar with it, so it's understandable that people are searching for answers.
You almost feel like an outsider trying to make sense of a system that feels very foreign. And that uncertainty extends to the evidence, too. The fact that the murder weapons are missing, that's a major problem for Sandra's defense.
Oh, definitely. It really weakens their ability to support his self-defense claim. The missing weapons just cast a huge shadow of doubt over everything. And then you have the arrest of Big Joke, the lead investigator, for corruption.
Right.
It just raises serious questions about the whole investigation right from the start.
It makes you question everything. What other details might be missing? What other secrets might be lurking beneath the surface?
It's a disturbing thought, and it brings us back to those fundamental questions. What actually happened between Sancho and Arrieta?
Was it a crime of passion?
A sudden burst of anger? Or was it planned all along?
These are the questions that have kept everyone captivated, from investigators to journalists to the public. And as we wait for the final verdict, you can really feel the anticipation building.
Absolutely. This case has so much weight to it with all its international implications and the tangled web of evidence.
It's a stark reminder that sometimes the truth can be elusive and the road to justice can be long and winding.
And the human heart, capable of such love and such cruelty, remains a mystery even to itself.
We've looked at the timeline, we've delved into the conflicting stories, and explored the complexities of the Thai legal system. But at the center of it all is this human drama, all these unanswered questions.
Yeah, and as we start to consider the possible outcomes for Daniel Sancho, the weight of those unanswered questions becomes even heavier. What's going to happen to him? Will the Thai court be lenient? Or will he face the full force of their justice system? Those are some of the things we'll explore next.
We've really gone deep on this one, examined all the evidence, the cultural differences in the legal systems, the human side of it all. But the big question remains, what's next for Daniel Sancho?
Yeah, everyone's waiting to see what happens. And if he's found guilty of premeditated murder, he could be facing the death penalty.
Which is a real possibility in Thailand.
It is, and that just shows how different things are compared to the Spanish legal system.
Absolutely. But Thailand hasn't actually executed anyone since 2018, so it's more likely that a death sentence would be changed to life in prison.
Right, a life sentence is definitely more probable.
Still, life in a Thai prison, that's a pretty grim prospect. We did talk about the chance of him being transferred to a Spanish prison.
Yeah, after serving some of his sentence in Thailand.
But how likely is that to actually happen?
Honestly, not very likely. I mean, there is a treaty between Spain and Thailand from 1983 that allows for these kinds of transfers.
Okay.
But it's super complicated. He'd have to serve at least a third of his sentence in Thailand first.
Right.
Then he'd have to formally ask for a pardon. And even then, it's up to both governments to agree to the transfer.
So a lot of ifs.
Exactly. No guarantees at all. And it often comes down to politics and the relationship between the two countries.
So even if a transfer did happen, it wouldn't be a quick or easy thing?
No, not at all.
And until then, he's dealing with the Thai prison system, which I imagine is a whole different world.
Oh, absolutely. And we can't forget about the financial strain this has put on his family. The legal fees must be enormous.
Yeah.
Plus travel costs, the emotional stress, all of it. I know the Spanish government does provide some financial aid to their citizens imprisoned abroad, but it's probably a drop in the ocean compared to the total cost.
It just highlights how this case goes far beyond just the courtroom. It's about real people, real families, trying to pick up the pieces after something so horrific.
Yeah, you've got Sancho's parents trying to support him while also coming to terms with what he's done, and then Arrieta's family grieving their loss and fighting for justice from so far away.
It's a tragedy, no doubt. No easy answers. And this case has captured the world's attention, not just because of how gruesome it is.
Right.
It makes us face some uncomfortable truths about ourselves, the dark side of paradise, and how complicated justice can be in a globalized world.
It really does.
And as we wait for the verdict, there's this sense of unease. And a question keeps coming back to me. What made Daniel Sancho do this? What led him down this path?
Yeah, that's the question that's going to stay with us, even after the trial is over and the sentence is given.
I think you're right. We've uncovered so much in this deep dive. The evidence, the legal intricacies, the human stories. But we end up with more questions than answers.
And maybe that's the point. This case, with all its twists and turns, it forces us to look deeper, to wrestle with the complexities of human behavior, and to accept that sometimes, even when we're seeking justice, there isn't a neat and tiny resolution. Just questions that linger, and the weight of the consequences.
Well said. A truly fascinating and disturbing case.